Hello everyone. On today's build I'm going to be doing several diverse things, working on the nacelles, working on the saucer today. Just wanted to show you the last issue of on the BUSSARD. I went ahead and added mirrors to the other one, and that's this piece right here. It's done up. I need to put the little Christmas tree crystals back in on this, and this will be ready to go for installation. I've found it really interesting, a lot of the diverse comments that I've received on the tests. Some people saying they don't see a difference, some saying they do. Some, I think, not understanding the lighting kit to a degree that Polar Lights has produced, where the LEDs are back behind this and they're shining through here, through these holes, because we all know that most LEDs have a very narrow field of light output. And then they're hitting these crystals, which have all been treated like these here, that are shaped like the Christmas tree bulbs that were on the original studio model. And these have been sanded, and they go in like this, and once these plastic colored pieces were sanded, they disperse light very much like an incandescent bulb does, which I commend Polar Lights and Gary Kerr and Mike Anderson and Jamie and all of them for coming up with this design that is just, in my opinion, really cool. And whether or not you put mirrors on it or not, I think it is important to at least have the foil tape. I didn't show any video without the foil tape, but it does make a rather big difference. And I've taken a look online with builds that people are working on where they've used a frosting product, a clear frost, either from Krylon or other companies, and I personally don't like the look that the frosted product spraying on the plastic gives. The frosting that I think that looks better, more like the studio model, is achieved by using steel wool. And of course everyone can build their own, and you know, your own build is your own build, and it's good and it's great, and I commend everyone. But personally I think using the steel wool, and I use two different types, 000 fine and a fine steel wool, to do the sanding on the inside of these pieces, which I'm going to do some more heavier sanding right here in the middle because I want more diffusion on the collectors. And I also sanded this piece that has the brass photo etch fans on it from Paragraphics. I also sanded this piece as well, this on the outside and these on the inside, so that I would have a nice smooth finish here on these. And these go together in like that. So personally, after looking at all the different items, I think the steel wool gives the best diffusion for these BUSSARDs. Also, when you spray with a spray on the inside of a dome like this, it has a tendency to pull here toward the bottom because it'll run down some unless you do really fine, multiple fine coats. I don't like that pull effect. So I think for me, steel wool is the way to go. For everyone else, I mean, choose your different paths. There's a lot of good resources online to make a determination, and maybe someone will come up with even a better creative way of doing this. I look forward to seeing everyone's builds. But this is how this works with the LEDs back behind, and the fan motor comes through here, and these crystals diffuse the light very much like incandescent. I happen to agree with Model Man Tom about the mirrors. I think it does make a little bit of a difference. I think I also agree with TrekWorks. Some guys, some people like the more of the diffused look. This creates a little bit more of a focused look on some of the lights. In terms of the colored lights showing up, I think just a little bit better. But there's a lot of different ways to do it. My key point about doing this is I'm just trying to come up with a way that reproduces the lighting of the studio model the best that I can in terms of my interpretation on this. And I just really thank Polar Lights for giving all us modelers the resources and tools to be able to recreate this model in our own way, in our own interpretations. You know, this kit is amazing. The lighting kit is an excellent kit as well. The photo etch that comes that you can get from round 2 plus the photo etch from Paragraphics are outstanding and provide a lot of wonderful detail. So that being said, I'm going to also move on to putting the screen grills onto these pieces. They've all been painted up, and these are from photo etch from Paragraphics, which I'm going to be adding to these parts, and they've been painted up in the recommended aluminum color. So that will be going on. They'll be applying these and the ones that have been folded to fit on top of these other pieces. So I can get that done. I can get the end caps and everything for the nacelles painted up. I've already put multiple coats of paint, a couple coats of paint on the nacelles. I did a first coat, a light sanding, and then a second coat. And before I'm done, there will probably be 3 or 4 coats on the nacelles. So you'll be seeing those shortly. My goal is to get the nacelles done in terms of getting close to being assembled, and then I want to start moving on to the light kit for the saucer. So see you back in a moment, and hopefully I'll have something kind of interesting to show you. Well, I moved on to the saucer, and I've installed some of the lighting, and I found some issues. Normally, I would prefer to be soldering all my connections. I personally believe that's the right way to go, but I committed to using this light kit and using the cabling to try to do as much as possible as a straight build as a representation. And this kit uses some connectors that personally I think may be fine on regular strip lighting, but can be somewhat problematic in working with a model kit. I mean, if you have a long strip light that you're installing in a house or something, you have one of these type of connectors usually, or maybe 2 of them to connect 2 long strips together. But when you're putting these in a model, these little connectors are very difficult to work with in terms of getting them to seat properly. Well, I shouldn't say they're difficult. They're just they just take a little patience and time. But I just assembled all this, and I just picked up the dish, and I realized that 2/3 of the circuit went dead. And I realized that there's something that you've got to do after you put these in place, and that is you've got to, besides gluing down all your cabling, and I use hot glue, but I use super cool hot glue, which is a type that I get from Hobby Lobby for this particular Cool Shot gun, and it's a Cool Shot glue which even melts even at a much lower temperature than low temperature hot glue. But one of the things that you need to do when you're running all your cabling and you're putting these in is right here on these connectors, you need to put a little dab of glue on those. And let me show you right here, because this thing slides in and out onto the copper connection points. Hold on just a moment. Let me see here. There we go. It's in its out position, and then you press it down to lock it in place. Well, if you're going to move this around, you better make sure that those can't ever come undone. So what you should do is you should put some hot glue right on those. And let me turn off the lights on this kit and show you exactly what I've done is right on the connectors themselves on both sides. I've put a dab of hot glue right on them so that it locks them in place permanently and they cannot come open. If you do that, you should be pretty safe with this kit, and when you go to put it together and move it around and never have to worry about your connectors coming loose. Other than that, the light kit is really easy to do. You follow the instructions. They have all the cables individually labeled for exactly where they go. And as you can see, I've hot glued in. I've still got some more to do on these connection points because I really don't want these cables to come loose. Their light strips have the 3M adhesive backing to them. I don't, even though it's 3M, I'm not going to trust that. I'm going to actually glue each strip down into place as well, so that they can't move, and make sure it's really solid. The next thing I'm going to do is install, finish installing the rest of the lighting for the upper and the lower saucer, and get everything ready to move on to the next step, because I have already done pre-painting on the saucer for the first 2 light coats. I did the light blocking on the on the inside. I've done a white coat here. I've primed the outside, wet sanded it. Put 2 coats with a light wet sanding each of the Tamiya paint, slightly lightened on the hull, and there will probably be 1 or 2 more coats on there before I'm finished. Well, this is the upper saucer wiring minus the bridge. The bridge uses a 3-piece wiring rig that attaches to the actual bridge unit that goes inside the A, B, and C deck domes. That bridge unit, here's the opaque one, has these pins on them to hold the LEDs, and the clear bridge part also has that. So I'll be mounting that one when I finish the clear bridge, which is one of my next projects. So I just wanted to show you this wiring harness. This is the 3 LEDs for the bridge. These are put down the exact same way using the cool hot glue, completely wired in. I also went ahead and wired up, glued up the connectors themselves, so there's no way for them to come undone. And I've already tested this, and it's working perfectly fine, and none of these parts can move. I've got plenty of glue all the way around on them, so they're all in place and ready to go. But again, I just want to reiterate that it's very important when you're using this kit to make sure that you put a little glue here, whichever type you're wanting to use. You can't use CA, though; it can damage the LEDs. These are uncoated in terms of having a big plastic lens on them. CA can fog that lens, and CA can damage the LED strip. So using a glue that sets up quickly, like a cool hot glue, I think is probably the best way to go. It's quick and easy. But you do have to make sure that you lock these in so that they cannot possibly slide out while you're handling the model or anything in the future. And if you do need to take them apart, these little things of this glue is relatively easy to pop off, and you can take this apart and redo it if you needed to. These are the windows for the neck or the dorsal, and these are those parts. This part of the ship is lit in the kit by 2 pieces of the LED tape, 3 LED sections, emitters per piece of tape, and one will go here on this piece, and one goes on the opposite side over here on this square. I've already taken the clear windows and I've sanded them and used some sandpaper and some steel wool on them to get them frosted up, because that will disperse the light better, and it will also, in case a wire crosses over by one of the windows, it will also help hide the wire from being seen from outside the model. What I'm going to do with this section of the vessel is I'm going to go ahead and install the lights in it with the windows, and I'm going to go ahead and close it up because the outside's already painted, and I'm going to seal it and tape it off and work on the seams so that I can get the seams perfectly smooth. So this actually will be the first part of the ship that will be sealed up and ready to go as part of this build. Now, to install the windows, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to try to put them in as one solid piece. That'll be too difficult for gluing down and get them all flush with the front and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break them up in parts, like one section and then another section, and that way I can put a clamp on here and make sure that I get them fully seated. I've already sanded out some of the window ports. There may be another one like this one right here I have to do a little bit more sanding on to get the windows to fit properly. But it'll also help with that by breaking these up into sections and to glue them in individually. So that's what I'm going to do for that. Well, here's the lighting on the dorsal, on the neck. The two strips have been installed and they've been all glued in. Again, I paid attention to making sure about gluing in the connecting pins so that they can't come out of the strips. And all the windows are in place. I did cut them up to make them easier to put in than trying to put them all in one piece, which adds undue tension and very difficult to do. You should always cut these up and put them in sections. It's much easier to do. You can get them to fit in really well. Some of them I glued in with testers, cement for plastic models. The ones that were a little tight and I was a little bit concerned about them, so I scraped off the paint so I could get a good bond between the clear styrene and the kit styrene. All the other ones I glued in with micro crystal clear from Microscale Industries. They were in quite loosely, so I wasn't worried about tension issues with them popping out, so I set them in with that. Micro crystal clear is a good bonder, so those should hold up really well. So now I'm going to go ahead and close it up as a mock-up with some clamps, and we'll take a look at what the lights look like. Well, here it is clamped together. The dorsals looks pretty good. The lighting is really even. Very impressed with how that looks. And let me flip it over to the other side so you can see the other side. Yeah, that's very smooth, very clean looking. Well, that looks really nice. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to glue it up as it is, and then I'll come back and I will tape off the sections right up here on the seams after it sets up, so that I can do some filling and sanding here and priming and repainting up here on the front and back sides of this. But I've gone ahead and pre-painted the dorsal, the neck, so that all I have to deal with is here on the seams as I put it together, and I won't have to worry about having to paint any of this. This I'll just mask off so I won't get any paint on the windows. I hate having to mask off tons of little windows, so by doing it this way I'll be able to get a nice seam. It'll blend out and won't show up, hopefully, and I won't have to deal with masking off a whole bunch of windows and painting them. Some people assemble their models and mask the windows. I personally prefer to do everything I can to prevent that, because masking takes a lot of time, and if you're not really careful with it, when you get really close to the model, you can always tell that it was masked off, because no matter how good you are, ultimately, if you're not careful, really super detailed and careful, one little mask will be slightly different from the other. And because these windows are so regular in their dimensional sizes, I really don't want to have to do that. So there you go. There it is for this. And after this, the next step will be the engineering hall, the secondary hull, and getting all the lighting installed on that.